Hi, welcome to Wicked Laughs, a weekly comedy podcast that we put on every week. Very interesting stuff, back of the stage, back of the scenes, green room stuff with my special comedy podcast partner, Tom Hayes. Tom, how are you this week?
Oh, just fabulous, Bucky. We're doing some very positive things. We're concentrating on comedy, and I find my energy level is picked up in spite of what might be going on in the outside world. My inner world is becoming more fun. I'm thinking more comedically, and jokes are coming, material. It's a great lesson. So yeah, I'm fine.
I have to remember half the jokes that I know because, as we both know, you and I haven't been on stage live in year and a half type thing. And it's been kind of challenging, but this enlivens the soul. People need to laugh. And what we do here, which is very cool, Tom, is that we tell people things that they don't know. And this week is no exception. This week involves a pirate ship.
I can't wait for this week because, well, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm gonna let you do it, Bucky. There's a magic word you're about to use.
It's
We're gonna
all
talk about
this week, folks. How can you not listen to a podcast about pirate ships? And this week is about pirate ships, and you kind of related to that, aren't you, Tom?
Well, I'm gonna just let the folks see why. You see, right there is an artifice. There is a peg leg and crutches. So I know about pirates, Bucky, because I am one. I'm a living modern day pirate. And I was just explaining that after I lost my leg, I was a young kid, and no matter where I went before I got my prosthesis, I just drew attention. Here's this young kid walking around with crutches in one leg, and I'd have to explain to everybody because everybody's just naturally curious. How'd you lose your leg? How'd you lose your leg? And it got to be tedious, and then I would invent stories, great stories. I remember being interviewed at Lake Mount Sunapee when the handicapped skiers came on board, and some woman from the local paper up there in New London interviewed me, and she asked me how it happened, and I told her I was a parachutist, and I seared my leg on a high tension wire. And
that's cool.
Thinking that never would. She printed it. so evolution finally led me to when kids, instead of having to do a lot of explanation to children why I had one leg, I would just look at them and said, "You didn't know I was a pirate, did ya?"
Well, I gotta tell you something, Tom. If it weren't for pirates, we would not have vowels. A, I. Oh.
So it's fun being a pirate in disguise, and the kids usually it changes. It's so funny, Bucky, that injecting that humor in that aspect, they've completely figured they don't want an explanation anymore. They accept that, wow, a real life pirate. It makes sense.
There's a romanticism about that escapism, which comes with thinking about your pirate on a pirate ship. But this is a different type of pirate ship we're talking about. We're talking about pirate radio. It's a symbolism for what's going on now in life. So we chose this week's comedy podcast about that. Pirate radio ships were ships that it started in England and where the BBC, British Broadcast System, had so much control over what people saw and listened to. But at the meantime, 1964, you had all these bands coming out, Peter and Gordon, Herman's Hermits, the Beatles, all these people just coming up with rock and roll, and BBC refused to play those songs. So at the time, there was a 3-mile limit in Britain to go to the international waters. So entrepreneurs devised a plan to put ships with great broadcasting ability just 3 miles out, and they would just pipe in a great rock and roll back then. It was a special time, wasn't it? You remember the 60s, don't you? Or don't you?
Yeah, and well, you just mentioned the movie that we both saw. I didn't see it recently, but years ago, it made a great impression with Philip Seymour.
Yeah.
And the title is what?
The title is The Boat That Rocks.
Wow.
Yeah,
And it
and
was.
great movie, great movie. I just watched it again. But see, the reason that we're doing this is because we're taking this whole concept seriously with what Tom and I have been dealing with lately, which is a censorship from YouTube and Facebook about some of the beautiful comedy podcasts that we've done. We're historians, we educate, we
We're not making any money, folks.
no, we're not making any money, but the robots now are looking at our stuff and they shut us down, putting our great stuff on the internet, and it's sad, isn't it? And that's what they encountered back then. BBC had a lot of power in what people wanted to see or had to see.
The concept, Elvis came along and disrupted the world. He shocked the world. Up until that time, everything was conservative. The dress was conservative. The styles were conservative. People were used to conventionality, big band music. You didn't have anything wild. And that's what really scared the country. Was here's this wild kid. He's only 18, 19 years old. He's got long hair. He's got it styled in a DA. He's wearing black leather. I mean, he represents the churches were the first to rise up and call him the devil. It was the devil's music.
That's true. And it's so amusing to look back now at some of these old videos of people saying that rock and roll was going to be the death of the teenagers and stuff. The bottom line is you can't stop passion. You can't stop creativity. You can't stop what is going on. You can't do it. YouTube, Google, Twitter, all of these places, Facebook, they're trying to control the narrative in the world. That is not going to happen.
Well, and what a paradox. First, they presented a platform where creators could come and show their stuff that, unlike any other time in history, you didn't have to be. The people who controlled the media before were 3 stations, if you look at television, okay? So you had to get by them, their obstacles, in order to get a show. And they controlled everything. Well, the same thing with the record companies.
Right.
If you didn't make it by the gatekeepers, you didn't get your music played. And then you had to pass the other gatekeepers, which were the stations.
Well, not only that, they were the timekeepers too. You can't play this song on the radio, it's too long.
Right.
And that was the essence of the advancement of FM, basically, right? And so we have to, you and I have to talk about, to get funny here, folks, Tom and I have to bare our souls about when FM came in and we had no longer, 1964, Ford put 8 tracks in cars, right? And then off we went to go parking.
Yes. Yeah, because you didn't have to listen to commercials.
No.
You could pick the tunes that were erotic, that set the mood. Exactly.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times you talk about the mood. The mood was squashed, especially being from New Hampshire. I was in a lot of cold weather, and 8 tracks tapes and cold weather didn't mix too much. Yeah, and so then the advent in 1968, the cassettes came in, and cassettes were marvelous because you could go. Actually, it gives you the ability to go from one track to the other. So you could so as your date was walking to the car, you could set the right song, right? And that was great. That helped you to
Mood. Yeah, you
get
created a
lucky.
mood.
Yeah,
Right, a
yeah,
mood.
yeah, with the Boone's Farm and the Lancers one. But and then after that, you had the CDs, but it was all based on music. It was all of a sudden things have changed from AM radio to FM radio to 8-track to cassette to the different vehicles that were being used, right, to dispense music. And now look at us. We have Alexa. You can't even say that at your house right now,
I
can
know, I'm looking around for mine to take off. It's, you're right, it's the A word.
It's the A word. Who would have thought you would not want to say Alexa? Say Alexa right now, see what happens.
Alexa. See, she's just listening. She won't play. She's waiting for me to give her a command on.
Well, yeah, no. I want the fans out here to know what happens when you say,
Alexa, play rock and roll. Yeah, she's in the next room. She can't hear me. Sometimes she's moody. It's like,
we won't go there.
We don't.
We won't go there, Tom.
It's the same frustration, Bucky.
It's so funny.
That was a very profound.
Well, we are being watched by people.
Hopefully.
Or listened to. So yeah, so I guess the point we're making here today is the technology is going advancing every day. I mean, we have wonderful programs like Spotify and Sirius and XM and all these musical dispensaries, but yet what makes it go to that point? It's the fact that the music doesn't lie and it leads us to where our heart is. So I don't care, I do care with some of the stuff, the hard work that you and I have done in the past with YouTube and Facebook censoring our stuff. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, it's going to come back, right? It's going to come back. And the more you fight it, the more
resistance, exactly.
Right.
The more, what you resist persists. So you fight it and it gets stronger. You fight it, it gets stronger.
Well, it's funny because we always, I'm unfair a little bit with thinking that the algorithms that YouTube and Facebook and Twitter have are programmed by millennials who really don't know much. But I was just seeing a stat today that millennials are the ones who are discovering LPs. They're buying more records than people our age.
Vinyl's coming back.
Vinyl's coming back.
Well, they've had, again, with the A word, they can, everything's instantaneous and everything's disposable. And especially because it's instantaneous, if they'll listen to only a few bars of the song, and if it doesn't resonate, they get impatient because their minds can't, they switch to another one. It's like this, where before we had to go to the bookcase, we had to slide the album out, made a conscious choice that this is the album you want. You take it out of the sleeve, put it on, put the needle on, and there you go. And so there were commitments, there was energy and a reward, anticipation, all of the things we talked about.
The word that I like to use on this, and the reason I think that LPs are coming back, analog LP music is coming back, is because there's been a word that I like to use, lossity. A lossity is what the compression is when you take a song that is on an LP and you try to digitize it. you lose that type of
Yeah.
ambient, that type of real music. And that's why people are going back to LP music.
Yeah. And it wasn't the magic to the sound of
Tom, I'll get you some Jello. Stop spitting on yourself.
oh, I could do a whole the segues that we come up with are fabulous. The Penn and Teller, I'll do it because I was a magician. One of their tricks was to go into diners and order Jello for other tables.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you an inevitable question, and people that know me out there, my fans, probably want me to share this with them. What's the most memorable, and I can cut this out if I have to, but I don't want to. What's the most sexual encounter you've ever had in a car listening to an 8-track or cassette?
Please don't ask me.
I'll tell you a bunch of stories if you want.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, but what music did you listen to back then?
I was always, because my parents, I was blessed, and we were all blessed for being born to the greatest generation, because their music, even today, stands the test of time. You're talking about Benny Goodman, you're talking about Count Basie, Duke Ellington, that's Glenn Miller, and it still stands. I mean, that was the rock and roll of the day. That was music. That there's a documentary right now about jazz that Ken Burns did, and it shows that was the music that got kids rocking. I mean, in fact, rock and roll in the jitterbug came from the jitterbug. And so that was a music. If I wanted a romantic thing, you played, In the Mood, you played Sunset Serenade, those
were you did you find it, having one leg that you lost at the thigh, right? Did you find it difficult to learn to dance?
I don't want to continue. I'm hurt.
Oh yeah, you're hurt. Yeah, right.
I'm offended.
Yeah,
I don't want to be a specimen, Bucky.
Yeah, kiss me. Nothing makes me sick.
Yeah, go ahead. Having one leg. Go ahead.
No, did you find it hard to dance, or did you dance well?
I danced extremely well, and that, as I've alluded to before on our podcast, I'm doing a documentary on a club called the Sugar Shack, which was the only Black club ever in Boston. And if any dance moves came out that were new, that was it. And I grew up in a Black neighborhood. I experienced that rhythm every single day. And when I saw a documentary on Elvis, I forget what birthday it was commemorating, maybe his 50th or 60th. And they interviewed Black artists down in Memphis. And they said Elvis could move like that because Elvis hung out in those clubs. He went to all the Black clubs and he saw the moves. And so I'm an amazing dancer. In fact, I got to tell you this one. I'm at the South Shore Music Circus with my kids. And because my wife and I met at the Sugar Shack with those, we went to see the Temptations and the Four Tops. And lo and behold, there they are, maybe 3 rows up. And a Leroy from the Four Tops comes down.
He was the guy that sang the bass, right?
He was the lead singer.
Okay.
Leroy. My name's Leroy. He comes down, points to me and grabs me to come up and dance on the stage with the Four Tops and the Four. And the crowd went from cheering and everything else. When I started limping, I knew what they were thinking. Leroy had to pick the only white guy with a limp, with a wooden leg, to dance on stage with 2 of the best Black groups ever in the history of the world. And it was this, they all identified like, oh my God, he's going to totally embarrass us white people. Instead, I was taught to dance at the Sugar Shack by Black women. And I immediately went, And the crowd cheered out of their minds like, oh my God, the boy's got rhythm. And Leroy is looking at me and he's looking at the Temptations and the Four Tops. Look at this cat. Look at this white cat dance. And I didn't know that I was stepping on his microphone cord. and he's trying to get away. And my leg, my wooden leg, because I can't feel it, is holding him so he can't move. So it was, it's a long answer to your question, but I could dance like an MFer.
Well, let me say, getting back to a point here, is there are ways, just like the pirate ships off from the coast of England, there are ways to get the music out. Music is so important in our lives, and humor and joy, and that will never stop. Even though, and I have to say this, folks, because we've seen this personally, Tom, is YouTube has censored us, Facebook has censored us. We have to have this message to tell people, even though you and I have worked hard on this podcast series, there's a way to get the stuff out to people, because that's the most important thing.
Bucky, it's the, me, I like to go below, and it's the yin and the yang, isn't it? It's good and evil. It's the creators versus the critics. There's people who can't not do, like you and I cannot not do this. We have to do this. Right. There's something inside of us that drives us to entertain, to enlighten, to have fun. And there's, especially today, there's a wave that's trying to cancel all of that. But they can't, because first of all, good wins out over evil in the long run, always. And when you ignite people with joy, you can't contain them. I mean, they tried to stop Elvis. They tried to stop the Beatles. You can't.
They tried to stop the sock hops in the 50s. I mean, you go on and on and on what people have tried. The band in Boston. Remember that era?
Yeah, well, I did do a little research on band in Boston, and it came in actually didn't start until the late 1800s. And it started Malcolm somebody who was a big puritanical voice of reason, a moralist, who was going to stop what he saw as all the evil. And what happened, this is fascinating, because we talked about some of the marketing ploys of just say no, etc. It turned on them, because it was the first place that the publishers would introduce a racy book, hoping it got banned in Boston, because the rest of the country would become a bestseller.
Yes. You can't do that stuff, because people are smart enough now to turn that marketing towards their advantage, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what we're going to see with the cancel culture is just like with Just Say No and banned in Boston, people are going to go, well, why? What are you trying to cancel? Maybe there's something really good there.
It's not at this point, Tom, I think people are learning, and they're waking up to the point that it's not about a consensus. It's about the selfishness of decisions of certain individuals, right? And that's what's making these rules.
Oh, exactly. I mean, again, the moralists, the righteous mind, and we're right, and all of you are sinners, and we're gonna dictate, we're gonna clean up the world. And in the meantime, like with Just Say No, the kids are going, oh, really? You've been telling me no all my life. You told me I can't watch TV. You're telling me I can't have a candy bar. And to me, I can't discern. You're trying to look out for me that sugar's bad. I'm going, you're taking away the good stuff.
Right. So in wrapping up here, I have to tell you folks out there, especially the younger folks that are listening, that you have to give thanks when you go on a program like Spotify, when you go on a program like the satellite radio programs, where you can listen to so much stuff, and you can at the sound of a voice, you can find a song you want. the days of LPs, the days of 8 tracks, CDs, cassettes, those were the days of development that brought us to where we are now. But the reason it brought us to where we are now is because of our passion and drive to listen and watch this.
Exactly. And, you know, the things that, well, you know, what I admire about your act is you not only did comedy and you defied conventional, what became even comedy, when you think about it, comedy, which is irreverent, comedy, which is about creativity. What developed within a comedy world, especially in Boston, was this elitist. If you used a prop, if you used a guitar, if you used anything other than straight monologue, it wasn't comedy. And yet, to me, it was all shocking. It's like, isn't our purpose to entertain in any way that we do? And so I admire what you do and did is you used music and comedy, two of the greatest drivers.
But see, that's why my relationship with you and this podcast that we do every week is not just about comedy, but it's filled with entertainment and knowledge that people should know about. We can't let this heritage drop by the wayside. We have to bring the message to people. And that's what we do here at Wicked Laughs.
Yeah. And bringing your point about the fact that everything is instantaneous, you don't have to work it. All you have to do is speak to the A word and she gives you anything you want, like that. And because the attention span is dropped, if you get tired of that, you just jump to the other. So there's no appreciation. I mean, that musical piece was created with this kind of action in it, right?
Right.
Highs and lows, and it's an experience that you can only get by listening to the entire thing. The creator made it that long.
You look at, I was listening to Harry Chapin's Taxi yesterday on the way back up here. And then you look at songs like Stairway to Heaven. You wonder if they can even have that composition now because of this attention span stuff.
No, you know, exactly. I mean, because it involved, first of all, you know, and with, again, I'm trying not to get too crazy, but I drove for Uber for a while. And at the time I took Steve Jobs' quote from his address at Stanford. And basically, in a couple of lines, he gave his entire philosophy. My time is limited. I'm not wasting it living somebody else's life. I will not let the thoughts and opinions of other people drown out my own inner voice. And then he went on. So I would give it to millennials because I was driving in South Boston. And they would get quiet and they would read it and they would tell me, what a great quote. But then the question always came, how do you hear that voice? And I said, you have to shut off. You have to shut stuff off. You have to get quiet. You have to be patient. You have to listen.
Well, this is great. We're going to leave it with this. And it'll be curious, Tom, and I want you folks to follow along and monitor this to see if we are yet censored again this week. I don't think we will be because there's no proprietary music or stuff. Right. But this is a very important message that you folks have to look at and digest. And us also, it's good for us to talk about this.
Well, so you know, I've been in my critical moments recently, I said the cancel culture, and I'm not going to point which party they belong to or anything else.
You and I have the unique ability to be able to assess and curate all of this stuff because we've been there, done that in our lives. You've been in the comedy business for over 40 years. I've been in the entertainment business. I just don't want to tell you how long, but it's very cool to be at this point, to be bringing people this insight. And if there's any message here today, it's hope. It's to give people hope that no matter when you get frustrated with what you're not seeing and what you are seeing, your passions from your heart will continue.
Absolutely. And one of the greatest phrases I heard from a spiritual teacher was, where the attention goes, the energy flows. It's that simple. So in spite of what's going on, you have a choice always to pay attention to it or to take your attention away from it and put it on what you want. And right now we're focusing on creation, positive message, and it will go where it's supposed to.
Everybody puts their pants on the same way. And so with that message,
do they take them off the same way, Bucky?
I don't remember.
I mean, mine are always on and ready, Bucky.
You had to show that twice, huh? Okay.
It attracts an interesting audience.
Definitely subversive. Listen,
folks, this had lots of energy and lots of fun, and it germinated a lot of great ideas. I think we have got to do these things more. And if people see this, look for us and look for the funny stuff we've done, because we may put it on places like Vimeo, on our websites. And so you can track us down and really see the good stuff.
We have a website that I just put up called wickedlaughs.com. Everything that you see, we've got, Tom and I have some very, very funny stuff that we've done, and you have to look at that. But for an audio presentation today, I'm very happy with today, Tom. Our energy level was up. We told people some things they did not know, and that's what we do here at Wicked Laughs on the shores of Lake Guttapee here in New Hampshire. I'm your host, Bucky Lewis.
And I'm your special host, special friend.
You can't even say it.
Your pirate. I'm the pirate of the day.
My special pirate friend who puts a patch on his eye, not knowing which one it's going to be on in the morning.
Have fun, folks. It's time to have fun again. Celebrate the fact that we're still alive and that we can take things, and especially sharing, let's share some joy.
Right. And especially to tune in again next week when we have another great podcast, our comedy podcast from Wicked Laughs. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. See you along.
Gotta go.